Hi and welcome to podcast number 10. I'm Karla Lee with Voice4Kids, and today we're going to be talking about children's activities outside of school. Voice4Kids, the raw, real truth of co-parenting through your child's eyes. I'm your host, Karla Lee, and it's time to hear their voice. Welcome to the Voice4Kids podcast. Hi, and welcome back to Voice4Kids. I'm Karla Lee with podcast number 10, which is about children's activities outside of school. So for me, just to share on how this was for me, this is one thing I do think my parents did well. They did keep me and my brother both in routine. So he was heavily into football. I was heavily into dancing. So I had usually around 3 classes a week that I attended. And this was something that didn't change. And if it wasn't my mother taking me, if it wasn't my father taking me, it was an auntie or an uncle or someone taking me to that class. And this was important. And the same for my brother. He had training, I think it was once a week, and he had games every Saturday. And these didn't change. And I think this is important for you to note that when you go through separation and divorce, the activities that your children have, you need to keep them the same if you can. Because if you change those, you're changing the family environment. Sometimes you're changing the school. Then you're changing their activity. There's just too many changes. So for me, this was something that was really, really important. And I think it's wise for you to actually have that conversation with your kids and give them that understanding that these things won't be changing. It's difficult, yes, if you're moving homes and doing things like that, but at the end of the day, it's really important that you try to keep that routine like exactly how it was, exactly how you're doing it. If you can be the same parent that's always dropped them off, that's great. If things change in that way, sit down and have that conversation with your child. Don't just change everything and how you normally talk them, and they really love that you normally talk them to that sport, and all of a sudden it's grandma doing it. That could be something that upsets them because they enjoy that you came as their parent and you always watch them. So it's just something to be really mindful, even as a parent, when it comes down to an activity. If your child's not in a sport, which I highly recommend, it's good putting them in a sport, because sometimes kids can have a lot of challenges in school when it comes to bullying and things like that. And having a youth group or some kind of a sport gives them another outlet of friends, and you never know who they may talk to. They may talk to, as I'll mention in a minute, to the coach or the trainer or the dance teacher or whoever about how they're going through things. They might open up to them, but also when it comes to a sport activity, it's just another outlet I find is healthy. I find it's healthy that kids have other outlets, not just the school environment. But if your child's not that way inclined, but they maybe like something that you do. So you might be a dad that really likes to go and fish, and one of your children really love to fish. Keep that activity going. That's a good way for you to bond with your child, is that activity, planning that time and saying, in 2 weeks' time when you come over, I've organised for fishing. It's an activity, it's an outlet. And if you're a mother and you love to do craft, and sometimes you like to go to little art exhibitions and your child's like into that, and maybe they do painting at the end, things like that. Think of things that your child can do outside of the home environment that's now changed, outside the school environment that could have changed because you might have had to change schools, and that does happen. And what you need to do is just make it a priority. Don't put such a low emphasis on their activities and think, they'll be okay, we're just going to change that, because they might have been in that football team for a long time. They might have been in that dance class for a long time. And when they're in those environments, that could be their happy place. And if you're changing the home environment, which now to them could be an unhappy place, and you've changed schools, they've had to meet all these new friends, so maybe that's been really difficult for them. And then on top of that, you're changing their activities and where they go, and now they're changing teams or whatever. It can just be too much for them. So I just highly recommend you think about keeping them in familiar territory as much as you can, because for me, it was good that I was still with the same dance teacher, same dance class. It was nothing different for me. Yes, the change was my dad was dropping me to a lot of dance class, because usually that was my mum. So there was a change there for me, but at the end of the day, I was still going to it. I got used to the fact that this was something my dad did, and then my uncle sometimes would pick me up, or it was a bit of a change in that way, but I was still within that class. So I just think it's something to be mindful. But right now, let's just look at some of the different things that I believe can actually help you when it comes to the challenges that you might face. So you're going to face some challenges, okay? So you're going to face challenges anyway when it comes to separation. And I think at the end of the day, as I'm saying right now, just keep the routine the same as much as you can. Don't make everything change in an instant. When the family breaks down, there's suddenly a change. All of a sudden you've gone from this change, as I said, changing schools. If you can't, if you don't have to change schools, I highly recommend you don't. It is better that you don't. It does become a difficult thing sometimes with separation and divorce, because you're in two homes and that has to happen. But if you can keep the school the same, I do recommend it. But the activities, as I said, familiar territory for them is a good thing, because if it's always changing everything, it can be different for them. And the bonding that you might find could be helpful is in the situation where your child's emotional. Maybe they're not talking to anyone in school. They might not be talking to the teacher about how they feel. They don't want to go to the school counsellor. But there could be a special bond they have with that coach. And there might be a time, because it's more of a relaxed environment, okay? So they're more relaxed. And maybe that dance teacher is seeing your child dance a little bit different, doesn't seem as happy. Or maybe that coach, that football coach, is seeing, he's not running as fast as he normally ran. He seems to be a bit more relaxed. He's not as ambitious. And it might just be that casual sit down that coach has after the session, after the training, and says, "Hey, buddy, is everything okay? You don't seem as enthusiastic." And that could be an open door of conversation that then that coach might share with you. "Look, your son opened up to me last night and said this to me, and I just want you to know, it seems like he's finding this relationship breakdown quite challenging." And that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, as long as your kids are opening up to someone, like obviously you don't want anyone, but it's someone they trust and they can share with. So it's actually a positive thing, because if your kids are just saying to you, I'm okay, but your child's sports teacher, so dance teacher, netball coach, basketball coach, or whoever, is seeing something different, and they are actually able to channel in with them and have a conversation, that could be a positive thing, and helps you see that, at the end of the day, they're opening up. They do seem like they want some help, and it gives you the opportunity to find the right time to talk to them. The other thing is, I just wanted to share on companionship. So in school, it can be really hard for children. I know when I went to, high school after my parents separated, well, obviously I was finishing primary school in those last few years, and as I said, I didn't talk about much. I was very angry in that time. But when I got to high school, I think there was so many more challenges, and probably at some stage, I don't know if I was just good at hiding it, but I think it would have been good to have a little tap on the shoulder from maybe a teacher that might have been picking up that there was something deeper with my attitude and my behaviour and things that were going on. But sadly, they didn't pick up on it. And I could have had that conversation of how I'm feeling, but who knows if I would have had it at the time. I can't say. I was 16, 17, around that time. Well, 15 to 17, I would say, was my hard time. But I think just having that companionship, sometimes outside of school, can actually help your child connect with people on a level it's separate to. So what I'm trying to say is, in school, kids can actually find that unit's the familiar territory they've always been in, but outside of school, it's more relaxed. So there could be a companionship that they have, as I said, with a teacher or a friend or someone that opens up a new avenue for them to have a conversation. Because I think when we look at how school environment is, it's very regimented. It's come in, you do your homework, or you study, whatever you do in class, you go to the next class, you do this, especially in high school. Go to maths, then you walk to the classroom for science, then you go here for English. There's all this. It's just really regimented. There's no time in between. And, for me, I wouldn't have even been thinking probably about counselling unless a teacher had picked up, a welfare teacher had picked up that maybe there seems to be something going wrong. But I think I was pretty good at hiding it. I think that's the issue. But the companionship that they can have outside when it comes to, as I said, an activity or a sport, is on a relaxed level where that child might be able to even express through what they're doing. So if they're into art, they might suddenly express through their art or things that are sadness in their art, and that teacher might pick up that there's something changing there, there's something different there. I know I've seen many times drawings that children have drawn before their separation and after the separation. They're very different, and I just think that a lot of coaches and children's activity teachers, or wherever they're going for a sport outside of school, are a little bit more relaxed to probably sit back and get to know those children on a different level, because their classroom environment with teachers, they've always got to come in and just do what they've got to do in that 45 minutes, whatever that class is. But outside of that's a bit different. So it's just being mindful that the activity outside is a positive thing. As I said before, if they don't want to go to that and they just want to be with you, choose an activity that you can sit down, relax, do something for a certain amount of time. Like I said, the fishing, be fishing for a certain amount of time, start talking about different things that might slowly connect to a conversation between you two and how you're feeling and how things have been. And, do you want to talk about things? And it opens up that channel. And the other thing is the parenting plan I wanted to talk about especially is because the parenting plan, I feel, is really key when it comes to this, because in the plan, when you talk about what's going to happen between two homes, who's going to go here, who's going to go there, and what's going to happen in their daily, weekly life, you need to include those activities. They are important. They are really key to put the activities that your children do in those plans. As I said before, just say dad normally dropped his son to the football, mum normally took the daughter to dancing class, whichever way it was. If you can slot them in as they were, that can be great. And you can say to your children, no, we're still doing this, we're still doing that. Or this week, every fortnight, Nana is actually the one who's going to be taking you and picking you up. And they see that. And you include your kids in that conversation, because sometimes, as I said before, the family breakdown, which involves children because they're in the family, if they're not involved in understanding what's going on, it can be very confusing for them. So I'm at dad's next week, and who's taking me to dancing because you normally take me? It can be quite stressful for them. So you say, no, what's going to happen is every fortnight when you're at dad's, because he finishes work at 5 and your dancing class starts at 3:30, your grandmother, which is your dad's mum, will always be picking you up from school and taking you straight to dance class every fortnight on Thursday. And they know, okay, that's what's happening every fortnight. Yeah. And your father will always pick you up. Your grandmother will always drop you there, and your father will pick you up, whichever way it is. And you've always got that communicated. When you're with me, I will always take you to dancing class and I can pick you up. If ever I couldn't do it, I'll let you know, but that's how it's going to be. It's communicating that to them. It's in the plan. The children understand how it is, and it's set as a routine, because routine is so important when it comes to outside activities. It's key to their children feeling like they're in control and understanding, because a lot of the control for children goes out the window. Right, they feel like they're totally out of control. The family unit's broken down. They've had no say in the family unit breaking down. They've had no say in how things are going to be, who's going to live where. It's sometimes for them, everything's out of control. So what they'll try and do is they'll try and find a way of controlling something. And sometimes it could be the worst thing they try to control. They control people, or they control, how they do things, and they make it very regimented to, no, this is how it's going to be. They start to become very controlling because they've lost control of their family unit, so they try and find a way they can control something. But if you involve them in the separation when it comes to, as I said, moving into two homes, okay, we've got two homes here, would you like to help decorate? You've got a new room now, what colour would you like it? You're giving them a bit of control in that situation, and it's the same with activities. No, this is the activities, let's sit down and talk about it. Are you happy with this? This is what we can do. As I said here, when you go to dad's, Dad will drop you, Dad's mother, your grandmother, will drop you to class every Thursday at 3:30. But in the afternoon, he'll always pick you up. It's giving them some understanding, some control, and being part of the conversation. When you take everything away from them and you give them no say, that's when sometimes there can be like a rebellious attitude. So pretty much when it comes down to this, what I'm trying to say, because this is only a short podcast, because this is just to pinpoint the importance of children's activities outside of the school. It's to make sure that you involve them. It's to make sure that you try and keep that environment the same. Don't change if you don't have to. As I said before, if you don't have to change the school, don't change the school. But if you've had to change the home environment, if you've had to change the school, please try and keep the routines and activities outside of school the same. The same teacher they've gone to for coaching, the same, they could be doing tuition. It could be many things, music class, anything, whatever it is. Try and keep them with the same environment because they've got the same friends there. And as I said, you never know if they might open up to that coach about how they're feeling. It also makes them feel like they're in familiar territory somewhere in this family breakdown. And as I said, you can be part of that too. Take them to activities and do things with them when they're in your care and make it something that you can build a good relationship, and it can be a casual relationship, and then you open up more and the kids talk to you. And in the parenting plan, make sure you involve those topics of the activities inside of it and say, yep, this is part of their routine. When they're with you, we do this. When they're with you, we do this. And this is what we're going to do. And it makes it very clear. My point about this is making it very clear what's happening and making it open to them for conversation. And at the same time, if things need to change for some reason, involve them. Sit down with them and say, look, this has always happened every fortnight and this is what's happened when you're with me. But what we need to do now, because we're moving, is we're going to have your uncle pick you up now because we're too far away from where Grandma lives. So it's a bit harder for her, but Uncle Jerry is happy to come and take you from school to there every fortnight. You just have to communicate it. Keep it very open, but you always bring them and let them be involved. That is the end of this podcast 10, which is children's activities outside of school. I hope you enjoy this one. It's only short, but it just gives you insight into why it's important to keep the routine, give them activities outside, let them connect with other people, and you never know what can happen from that. But I'm sure a lot of positive things because you're keeping something familiar to them, familiar territory. So the next podcast 11, is about co-parenting, and we're going to delve deep into that, about the discussion of working together as a family unit, but working together in the best interests of the children. So I'll see you on the next podcast. I'm Karla Lee with Voice4Kids. See you soon.